Join author and former Vibe editor-in-chief Danielle Smith and Black Girl Songbook as she celebrates and uplifts the talent of Black women in the music industry. Tune in for in-depth discussions with your favorite songwriters, producers, and artists, as well as anecdotes from Danielle. Plus, you'll hear the songs of Black women who changed the landscape of American music forever. Check out Black Girl Songbook exclusively on Spotify.
This episode is brought to you by Anytime Fitness. We may talk a whole lot about sports, but when it comes to keeping fit ourselves, there's definitely room for improvement. I hit this point early July. I was just like, I am not in good enough shape. I started trying to walk at least 15,000 steps a day or hiking or just anything to keep my legs moving. Now it's the end of 2023. I feel great. I had a physical 3 weeks ago and the guy was like, you're doing great. You're doing better than you were 3 years ago. I felt great. Whatever your goals are, progress is possible thanks to Anytime Fitness. Get a personalized plan and support from an expert coach anytime, anywhere. Visit anytimefitness.com to try Anytime Fitness for free. Start to train for your life. Terms, conditions, and restrictions apply. See website for details.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. From your morning podcast to your afternoon playlist, State Farm knows you personalize your entire day. And that's why State Farm helps you personalize your insurance with the State Farm Personal Price Plan. It offers coverage options that help protect what you care about most at an affordable price just for you. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices vary by state. Options selected by customer. Availability and eligibility may vary.
I need support staff to clear the room. Stand up and walk, now.
Hello and welcome to The Watch. My name is Chris Ryan. I am an editor at TheRinger.com, and joining me on the other line, he'll have what Sudeikis is having. It's Andy Greenwald!
Happy Monday, buddy.
The thing about Monday is it's always Monday. Andy, we are going to be talking today about the Golden Globes.
Profound.
And WandaVision. And we don't have to do that thing where we stop. We can just get right into it.
Oh, I'm really used to that now.
No, I know. You're a creature of habit. You're a creature of habit.
I like to pop off right at the top to kind of like mess up your rhythm. You know what I mean? Like that's what I do. And yet I've been muzzled these last few months with the framework where you have to set us up. So I've been very quiet at the top.
Well, I got to tell you something. I've noticed that. And I kind of sometimes, like there's this pregnant pause every time I start a podcast where I'm like, what Andy am I getting today? Now, eventually I always get the best of you. You know what I mean? And I have my ways of extracting that. But there's like sometimes where I'm like, man, he seems a little down today or whatever. Like, and it's just, I don't know how we're going to elicit like that pure, unbridled joy and passion for comic book culture that I know you have inside you.
Well, a couple things. I appreciate your tender management of me because that's what I expect out of everyone in my life to great effect. People love that. But two, you know, as listeners know, I recently, a year late, watched the documentary The Last Dance. And I have to say, I can't be the only one who saw similarities between me and Michael Jordan, just in terms of being just like a crunch time red light player. You know what I mean?
That's
like,
true.
When the game starts, I am fully present and I'm only thinking about you and just having some hot takes about pop culture.
So let's start our flu pod then. How about that? I don't want to turn this podcast, this particular episode, but in general, like I'm very sensitive about not making it into a hater's ball. Like I don't want us to develop like a kind of Statler and Waldorf routine where we're just like the things that people like suck and what we like is just absolutely like untouchable. But I couldn't.
But we save that usually for our personal conversations.
But so I want to keep this like. I want to keep it non-ad hominem today, like,
okay.
The Golden Globes happened last night. I did not watch them as they were taking place, Okay. I actually got distracted by both making dinner, which was a fairly straightforward kind of a veggie enchilada with a rojo sauce. And I got a chicken from over at Kismet Rotisserie. If you're in the neighborhood, they do great rotisserie chickens. And just kind of made a little dinner and then watched actually some spring training baseball as a kind of like vibes therapy. And I just want to say that everybody who pitches for the Washington Nationals looks like they are Wayne Grow from Heat. So I thought I'd point that out. But yeah, I was kind of following along a little bit, seeing who was winning. And then I went back, kind of like the way you watch SNL. Like I didn't watch it in the moment, but I went back and watched the clips and got familiar with everything that happened.
Can I, before we even get into the specifics, Chris, I know you're teed up here. I just want to jump in and say something I've learned about you since we're sharing is that when you need a little QT or a little YT, you time, or for you it would be MT,
me time.
Not mountain time, but me time.
Yeah, right.
What you say you're doing is you write, if I ask you, you just write back, watching golf. And I realized at a certain point, do you remember like when people used to put a sock on the doorknob in a dorm room in college to be like, don't come in, like something's going on in here.
That's me watching Colin Morikawa.
But because I think that the real pros maybe had successful hooking up lives and put socks on the doors. But also, if you lived like I did in college, you had a shared room with someone you didn't even choose, you put the sock on the door or whatever, you just get a little quality time. So my point is,
you would put the sock on the door just to like read a book?
That you do, I'm saying. And so I think maybe for you, quote, I'm watching golf is the sock.
It's not
I don't
a
know if there was
euphemism.
golf
I actually
on.
was watching golf. Yeah, I watched Colin Morikawa win at the WGC at the Concession Golf Club.
You made up all of those words and said them in that order. Okay, fine. But you watched golf and you healed yourself and then you re-engaged with the culture.
We have, I think, on and off talked about almost every Golden Globe since we started doing this podcast back in 2012, 2011, whenever we started this podcast. And I think we do it with tongue-in-cheek but sincere kind of anticipation and, excitement around the project. Generally speaking, the reason why I have enjoyed the Globes in the past is for the very thing that was absent from this year's Globes, as many people who wrote recap pieces pointed out. This was the Globes year where we did not get to see people getting increasingly toasted on champagne and no food hanging out in a small ballroom. So we had a virtual award ceremony. And as with years past, our buddy Zach Barron has written about this in the past for GQ. We have obviously a lot of more recent accusations or charges sort of levied at the Hollywood Foreign Press about both institutional bias and also some questionable ethical dealings when it comes to how they choose what gets nominated and what wins. There are no Black people who are a member of the Hollywood Foreign Press. That has been that has been coming up recently in an LA Times article. So you go into this with probably a bad taste in your mouth. You're just kind of like, I understand we all have to participate in the celebrity industrial complex, but at the same time, like, is this one that we should just like let slide by the wayside and try something else? So that was, I think, hanging over this. And then, as usually happens, Hollywood finds a way. Life finds a way to give you like 3 or 4 moments that you're like, really glad that happened. Really, really glad I saw this, whether live or after the fact. And this was pretty amusing. And I'm glad that Daniel Kaluuya or whoever was like celebrated for their work. So I guess I went into this thing with pretty mixed emotions. And that hasn't really changed. I was just happy for some of the folks who won.
Yeah, I think let's begin by saying anytime something or someone worthwhile is celebrated in a public forum, that's great.
Sure.
That's great. Yeah. It doesn't matter how random or suspect the organization is or the circumstance is. Like, good work should be recognized. People should feel good about having their work recognized.
That's why you went to
forum.
CPAC.
That is truly why I went to CPAC. I also... listen, you've known me for years. I'm a big fan of idols, like golden idols,
sure.
like all the way back to the Bible, like that first lamb or whatever that Moses brought down. I was like, that's dope. Let's worship that.
Yeah.
So
when does that drop on StockX?
I was going to make a CPAC joke too, but no need now. But basically to say that this is the year, and I am also being slightly tongue-in-cheek here, but this is the year when a lot of core truths or beliefs that we had as relatively affluent American citizens, these beliefs were shattered or fell by the wayside, or you realize like things don't always have to be this way. There isn't always a safety net. Things, a lot of truth that we believed about like our government or whatever have fallen, or about our own public health or about our neighbors, whatever. This is also the year that I think the card got pulled on the Golden Globes. Mm-hmm. And it is not because it's a shockingly non-diverse membership group. Nobody thought it was diverse. I mean, I'm not saying this isn't a problem. We can discuss that in a separate segment or further down the road of this conversation, but everybody knew it was a sketchy clown show. It's always been. That's fine. But what I think was not well understood was that the Golden Globes not just exist at the forefront of our culture or our Oscar balloting predictions game, but just exist full stop is because NBC pays to have a TV show where celebrities drink champagne in a room. Mm-hmm. That is why they exist. The Hollywood Foreign Press, I'm gonna drop another mind bomb for you guys. Press in general is not raking in the big bucks. But NBC having a multi-year contract to funnel millions of dollars to this group to put on this award show, that's why it exists.
Yeah.
That's it. And this year they couldn't deliver that. You know, all of the complaints about the membership of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association or of the snubs in the nominations, in a normal year, those would have gotten some traction, and maybe they would have gotten some response and maybe some much needed attending to within the ranks of this bizarre group. But all of it would have been forgotten with a fun, glitzy ceremony hosted by Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, potentially in the same city, which then, by dint of having such a weird, small cabal, showered awards on some very deserving people who my guess is won't be showered with awards around Oscar or even next year's Emmy time. So fundamentally, they're supposed to deliver an entertaining TV show about drunk celebrities, and they couldn't do it. Not only couldn't they do it, the only real winner last night, other than Andra Day, I guess, is the Emmys. Because the Emmys really, in retrospect, pulled off something kind of miraculous. It was a really good show. And it wasn't just a really good award show. It was good in surprising ways. They steered into the skid of the moment and somehow managed to put on something that was technically, I guess, impressive in terms of just the pulling it off, but just had a different spirit and a different flavor and was entertaining because of the difference, not in spite of it. Golden Globes show was pretty much a train wreck. And so it just failed on every level that it needed to. And yeah, we can get into some of the winners that we're happy about, but I was pretty surprised. And turning it into not just like a weird, uncomfortable, low-tech Zoom meeting with celebrities who didn't want to talk to each other was one choice. But then Tina and Amy, smelling blood, just went after it and just made those old, weird journalists just like eat shit in front of an audience. That was so weird. And it made me feel like, maybe we're just not going to do this anymore.
Yeah. So one thing I noticed without having the spectacle of the ceremony and the people like interacting, because like there is just like the thrill of, oh, look, there's Angelina Jolie talking to Josh O'Connor. Like that doesn't get to happen this year or whatever. But having no ceremony and actually only thinking about the quite nonsensical awards in a lot of ways makes you kind of realize that the service it's provides, or like the mile marker it provides on the road to the Oscars, is, if not useful, at least educational. So now, obviously, I would say Nomadland is the favorite for Best Picture. Chloe Zhao is the favorite for Best Director. There will be a lot of conversation now about some of the flaws of Nomadland. I think some of the approaches Nomadland chooses to take to some of the subjects in the movie will be scrutinized maybe a little bit more closely. And there will be some conversation about whether Daniel Kaluuya is going to be a favorite, whether this person is a favorite. Like, I get what it means to the movies as like a spring training for the Oscars. I don't know what purpose it serves for television. It feels late. It feels out of touch. I actually don't disagree with many of the winners. Like, I'm a big Crown person. Like, so it's kind of cool to see this very good Crown season rewarded on such a almost sweep level. But it felt kind of out of touch with the cycle of TV. And that's something that I think is only going to get worse, not better, over the years. And so I sort of wonder whether the Globes should just be a movie award show. And if that might be, it's like the way you kind of fix it.
I don't disagree with you. I think, honestly, they won't do any of these things. So we're just spitballing here. But if you did want to differentiate your television perspective for the Golden Globes, because you're right, so much of its outsized importance just as an awards ceremony comes because it is right before the Oscars. So it does fuel momentum narratives, and that does have an effect, absolutely, on the eventual Oscar voting in many cases, and certainly the perception of the Oscars. This far removed from the Emmys, which are the traditional totem of television excellence, it serves no purpose, just kind of weekly parrot what the Emmys kind of did anyway. What would be really interesting is if they chose a lane, because TV, as we talk about week in and week out, is very stratified right now. And we can spend all this time talking about I May Destroy You in that way. But millions upon tens of millions of people have never seen it or heard of it.
Right.
And if you're going to differentiate the ceremonies, what would be great is let the elderly existing members of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association continue to work the movie side of the ball. That's where the biggest stars often are. Those are the lunches they want to attend and the galas, and they have a lot of history watching the important movies every year because there aren't that many of them in the consensus culture year after year. There will probably be
fewer going forward.
And there might even be fewer going forward. But separate the TV part out and hire 70 people, diverse people working in the media under the age of 35 and just give them the TV part of it and change it completely. Embrace what the Golden Globes could be, which is
Lifetime
a harbinger
Achievement
of TV's...
Award to SpongeBob then, right?
That's terrifying. Yes, Norman Lear hands off his trophy this year to Aang the Avatar from the Last Airbender series. But seriously, like the times that we've talked about the Golden Globes being good for television, and the times that I remember are when they anoint people first. You know, when it was Homeland, for example, winning Best Drama when it had only been on for a few months, or Donald Glover, or Phoebe Waller-Bridge, or these people being, basically demanding attention from the industry and then getting it subsequently 6 months later when the stodgier Emmys came around. That would kind of be interesting to just plant a flag and be like, this is what TV is going to be, and we're going to do that. But anyway, they won't do that. So instead, we just get this very weak sauce of, kind of conventional groupthink, very, very suspicious outlier things like that Sia movie being nominated for Best Picture.
Right. Rosamund Pike winning for I Care a Lot, which is a movie that came out like 10 days ago.
It's just very bizarre. But they couldn't even put on a good show. And let me say, I thought Tina and Amy were hilarious. Mm-hmm. I loved the opening. It was downhill from there. What was so odd was that the show didn't seem to understand what people might want to see and what it might offer that other shows can't. For example, the clip package for Norman Lear, and then Norman Lear at 98 years old talking about his career and saying thank you. Great. Why did they turn it into a Zoom breakout room where every so often we could see Bryan Cranston chuckle to himself while seated next to his vanity branded mezcal? You know what I mean? Like we don't want to look at boxes on our screens, and we certainly don't want to look at them when they're just like almost on dial-up connections with people who wouldn't even get a 0 on Room Rater. It was so bizarre to me. It was such a misread.
I'm just going to run through the TV winners really quickly, just to see if we have any comments on this. So Crown won for drama, Schitt's Creek won for comedy, Queen's Gambit won for limited. Just FYI, those are all 3 Netflix associated shows, if not Netflix shows specifically. Schitt's Creek was Pop TV, but became a Netflix sensation.
Queen's Gambit.
Happy about Queen's Gambit. Emma Corrin won for Best Actress Drama, which is, I think, an odd designation. She's in like 5 of the episodes. There's a couple that she's just straight up not in. So I think it's odd that but she definitely has like the most flashiest part in The Crown this season.
Also, some people in the HFPA membership do kind of believe that their mandate is to champion the new.
Absolutely, because that also goes for Josh O'Connor winning for Best Actor in a Drama, and he certainly did not have as big of a role this season, I thought, as he did the previous season. But I mean, that's all debatable. Anya Taylor-Joy won for Actress in a Limited Series. Gillian Anderson won for Supporting Actress Drama. John Boyega, Supporting Actor Drama, and Mark Ruffalo, Actor in a Limited Series for I Know This Much Is True. And then the most important win of the night obviously came for Best Actor in a Comedy, and that was Jason Sudeikis wearing a tie-dye hoodie in the middle of the night in London, where presumably he is working on Ted Lasso season 2, and just being the based god, just absolutely talking his shit and looking, as many people have noted, divorced AF. And I wondered whether or not that speech, did you get any flicker of, I should finish Ted Lasso?
No. But I also should say, very happy for him. Seems like a nice guy. Very happy for the show's many passionate fans who love it. And I'm sure we're very happy to see it rewarded. I should add, and I think I said this last year on the podcast, even before the Ted Lasso controversy, which only exists on our podcast.
You didn't care for it that much, and I loved it.
Yeah, but there are people who are not satisfied with leaving it there. But the time I did see Jason Sudeikis in person, when, as far as I know, he was still married, I believe I've mentioned this, he was wearing a regulation Lakers jersey, shorts, athletic shorts that looked like they were potentially tearaway.
He goes
pants.
to the Adam Sandler school of dressing for going outside. Yes.
Exactly. He looked like he was ready to leave from where I saw him and head straight to the Ali G Invitational pickup basketball game tournament. So what I'm saying is, when this guy is off the clock, he's all the way off. And my favorite thing about him winning last night was actually a tweet I saw this morning from his ex-wife, the writer and director Kay Cannon, who...
That's his ex-wife? He was married to Kay Cannon before Olivia Wilde?
Yes.
I had no idea.
His first ex-wife, I guess I should say, or soon to be. I don't know what the nomenclature is, but yes. And
if he's not from Utah, I'm sure it's his first ex-wife. Yeah.
Well, I just mean, I don't think he and Olivia Wilde are divorced.
Oh,
yet. I don't know the legal, so maybe he only has one currently,
sure,
in the full legal sense. Anyway, very sweetly congratulating him and loving the show and saying that she has many years experience of watching the Golden Globes with him stoned AF. So, I thought that was very sweet.
That's
and
cool.
Probably a little bit of a window into it. Other than that, in that long list, okay, that's my response.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Cool.
Sure.
That's my response is cool.
Who do you think? Sudeikis got all the headlines. My favorite, I can't fucking believe they dragged me in front of a 2002 sunflower stem iMac to scowl in tuxedo for 45 seconds, was Donald Sutherland losing in The Undoing, who was resplendent in his resentment and fury about even being dragged to this.
Yes. Pacino is similarly uninterested in participating in the event. My other favorite response was Fincher taking a shot.
I thought that was great too, because that was also the award. He took a shot when Mank didn't win screenplay, right? Which would have been his late father winning an award.
Yes. Aaron Sorkin won that.
I was very interested in Aaron Sorkin armoring himself with a phalanx of 7 women to combat the 7 men who were featured in his movie.
The Trial of Chicago 7.
I thought that was very was very interesting. Also, shout out to my favorite joke that Faye and Poehler made about his innate ability to make 7 men arguing with each other sound like 100 men. Good stuff. Fincher, I mean, I guess if you want to look at the one potential for the Zoom stuff being a positive, is that it occasionally can give you a little glimpse into a side of a celebrity or an artist that you might not have gotten. And with Fincher, reputationally, right, sometimes what you get is that he's an exacting taskmaster and he's a total perfectionist, and he's smothering, and some people can't bear it. And then the flip side of that is he's just self-flagellating. When he's done, he's so critical. And yet when we talk to people who've worked with him, like Jonathan Groff or Kim Dickens, they're like, we love him. We would do anything for him. And he's seemed like a very kind of fun, mischievous guy on Zoom. His sense of humor came out.
The thing I actually really enjoy about award season, aside from just the pageantry of it, but also the fact that a lot of really worthwhile pieces of art get celebrated, is it tends to bring together a bunch of different people from across the spectrum of movie making and television making and force them to participate in roundtable conversations. And often those are like some of my favorite interviews of the year. Sometimes they're really backslappy, but the Fincher Affleck thing that they did for Hollywood Reporter, I think, where it's just Affleck interviewing Fincher for 45 minutes, is priceless. Like I wish they had a podcast together. It's just amazing shit. Did you see this?
I didn't.
It's great. So he's like Affleck is asking Fincher when like the idea for Mank first arrived, and Fincher was talking. He said like, it was right after Alien 3, and Affleck goes, "So you were at your peak."
They should have a podcast.
And then they were talking about it. Affleck was participating in an actors roundtable because he was up for a bunch of stuff for The Way Back. Like people thought he was going to get nominated. I mean, maybe he did for the Globes. I can't remember. But he was like talking about Mank, and he was like, as a recovering alcoholic screenwriter, it really spoke to me. So I don't know.
Did you? I'm trying to remember which one. It was a recent Marin podcast where he let it slip that he recorded 2.5-hour interview with Fincher.
No.
And Fincher demanded final cut on it, and so he can't release it.
Oh my God.
Fincher was like, I can do better. Like, I don't think it was mean-spirited.
Right.
You know?
He was like,
he wasn't like, how dare you?
Yeah, redo some of this stuff.
It was in the Jodie Foster one, I think.
Oh, yeah. Jodie Foster also living life to the max.
Your old pal, Jodie Foster.
That's right. Any more Globe stuff you want to hit?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I want to ask you, Chris, it's not, okay, so it's not if, when you are nominated for something multiple times.
You don't have to say my name.
I could have been like Ustedes. It could have been a plural you.
Sure, right. The Jay McInerney you.
I think it's better, like, okay, I would not attend a Zoom award ceremony, and I would attend it in person. You know, there are people like Frances McDormand generally doesn't GAF no matter what, but she does show up. Like she gave a very memorable speech when she won the Oscar for three billboards. And there's some people who just never show up to any of them, you know. But I kind of really, but then there's the school of thought that like,
are there people still
easy.
Who don't show up at all if they're nominated?
Yeah, I'm sure there are. I mean, I'm sure there are some who have. I mean, I can't name a list of them, but there are generally people who aren't there year to year when they're nominated, or they don't make an effort to be there. But I guess the counter argument is that if it is a virtual ceremony and you, like in the case of like Yahya Abdul-Mateen, like aren't even leaving your spare bedroom with a futon on it to be there.
Yeah,
it's
Jeff
easier.
Daniels was definitely in like a Comfort Inn suite.
Jeff Daniels was in the motel they checked him into for his audition for Yellowstone spinoffs. You know what I mean? That was wild. But my point is, like, I respect not showing up for the virtual one. Even though it's easier, it's worse. Because you're going to sit there with a ring light and just scowl. Right. I don't see the upside. I don't see the upside.
Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about WandaVision. This episode is brought to you by Mint Mobile. New Year's resolutions are fun the first couple of weeks. Then you kind of maybe conveniently forget about them halfway through January. No shame. It happens to us all. But this year I have a foolproof plan, at least when it comes to saving money. Just switch to Mint Mobile and you're done. Goal accomplished, because for a limited time, their wireless plans are $15 a month when you buy a 3-month plan. The great thing about Mint Mobile is there's no jaw-dropping monthly bills or unexpected overages, and all plans come with unlimited talk and text. Get this new customer offer today at mintmobile.com/watch. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. All right, Andy, we're back. Again, this is not the haters' ball. We're working through our feelings. You know, I think we are, we're treading a line, you know, and I don't want to ever like diminish things that give people joy, especially in this day and age. But I do want to start this conversation by asking you this. Do you think that Kenneth Lonergan burned the master print of Manchester by the Sea when he saw this latest episode of WandaVision because he was like, no one else will ever say anything more profound about grief?
I am struggling, Christopher, the only other person here in the room with me.
Well, Sasha's here, but you know,
I know that's what I was going to mention.
But actually, Sasha
before.
Probably isn't listening right now because she didn't want WandaVision spoiled for her. Shout out to Sasha, who's engineering today.
There's also a synthezoid that is in 6 bisected pieces, $3 billion worth of vibranium here in my office, and I'm trying to piece back together. But I'm struggling here. This show and the tsunami that it presages.
There's two things. There's the show and the discourse around the show.
It's turning me into Martin Scorsese. I'm sorry, I just am.
Wish.
The greatest American filmmaker alive. It's who I am now.
That's right.
No, in the sense that I find myself on a lonely island, shouts to Andy Samberg, making what I believe to be relatively innocuous comments that I think are by and large objectively true, and yet riling the masses as if I am intentionally doing donuts on everyone's Twitter front lawn. Thank God, like Martin Scorsese, I have the wit and wisdom of Fran Lebowitz to take solace in.
That's right.
Because there are two lanes here. Is this a TV show that is made to the highest level of quality with craftspeople working their asses off on every side of the camera?
With great performances.
With great performances from actors whom we really, really like, admire, and respect. And is it at base level entertaining? At the minimum? Yes. 1,000 times yes. Mm-hmm. But I am really struggling. And I maybe this is the Twitter coming back on me too, because I'm seeing these tweets that we're, sort of innocuously joking about. But like, you can't put serious parentheses of like high art around this show. The conversation, the ways that we talk about things, I May Destroy You, It's a Sin, which I finished last night and has totally wrecked me. Those shows are interested in human experience and life and leave me feeling very complicated waves of emotion. Mm-hmm. WandaVision, at its best, leaves me feeling entertained and impressed. That's no small thing. Many, many shows do not clear those bars. But
there's so much pressure on this show. There's a lot of pressure on it. And I don't think that we don't necessarily give the show the amount of credit that it deserves for being as graceful under this pressure, because it's the first salvo in this Disney Plus Marvel Extended Universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe television gambit that they're making. And had they put out Falcon and the Winter Soldier first, I think that probably would have been a safer play. That would have been, you just double the left, and we just start the inning, and that's great. And this is definitely a different pitch from Marvel, although I don't necessarily think it's like a Jacques Tati playful, like Lynchian thing. I think it is like they had like a thing that they were doing in the beginning of the season where they were running through these decades of homages to television. And then it has slowly become basically the middle part of a Marvel movie where there's a lot of exposition. And that's fine. I think that's cool. I think that you and I are dipshits for getting absolutely triggered by people on Twitter being like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. So I mean, that's on us. Honestly, that's like, you and me dunking on one another at the same time and then both breaking our arms doing it or something. Like, I don't even know what the image should be, but we're idiots to be at this age in our lives and be like, Jesus Christ, somebody said this on Twitter about WandaVision and now I'm like, my mind is broken.
That's a cool image. Both of us dunking on very, very, very low nets.
Like 4
should
feet.
Be the new logo for this podcast. I really enjoy it. 2, I think someone tweeted like the line about like grief and perseverance of love.
It was like the shot, I think Vision says like grief is just love persevering or something like that. And somebody put up a tweet that was like, every screenwriter in town just said fuck in appreciation, right?
I mean, I don't know where to begin. I just feel sorry that these people aren't watching things that are good, like really good. You know what I mean? It's like, I remember, people know this about me, like I really, really enjoy a feature on the New York Magazine website, Grub Street, the Grub Street Diet.
Yeah, you participated in it.
I was the greatest honor of my professional life.
Where you're not only the president, but you're also a member.
But I read it every week. A random person, I guess with some significance in their field or whatever, like reports back on everything they eat over the course of a week, and it's very interesting about.
I've never seen you work on anything harder than you did on this.
It's the longest thing I've ever written. I'm sorry to everyone. I'm more proud of that than anything I've written in the last 5 years. And I wrote it 4.5 years ago. But my point is, there is one that stands out. And it was this dude, Steven, I forget his name. He was the owner of a bar in Greenpoint called the Commodore, and which was like a great kind of divey bar. And they had like tater tots and wings, and it was a cool place. And I think he also used to be in bands. He was in Harvey Danger or something. And his Grub Street Diet was kind of celebrated because he's just like, I only eat at the Checkers near my apartment. I am a professional cook, so I cook beautiful breakfasts for my girlfriend, and then I go eat 2 fried chicken sandwiches at Checkers and get like runoff coffee from the bodega. And then at night I go back to Checkers and eat 2 more hamburgers before I go to bed.
Right.
And everyone was like, yes, king. You know what I mean?
You dropped this king.
Yeah. Like,
you dropped these 2 fried chicken sandwiches.
You dropped dead of heart blockage, king. But all I could think
of
when I read it was
just like... Can I interrupt you for a second? You know what I did this weekend at one point? Without getting into specifics? I had my first double cheeseburger in a really long time.
Oh my God. How did it treat you?
Honestly, I feel like it knew I needed it. And there were no issues. Because sometimes you eat a cheeseburger and you're just like, now I'm dead. Yes. I felt power. I felt power from it. And I felt like just like my heart meter went up. That was also probably my cholesterol. But I just felt like I hadn't had a double smash burger like that in a really long time. And it it sent me.
Sometimes you need it. And by the way, I know that happened to you because I checked in with you on Saturday and you texted back, watching golf in all caps.
And I was like, not watching golf.
That's the salt and meat coursing through his body. God bless.
Yeah.
What did we eat the time before we went to see Fleetwood Mac at like the Tweeter Center in New Jersey in 2004, where you introduced the idea of a meat coma to me? I think there was like a large barbecue feast or something.
Oh, it was a ton of chicken. I think we ate a ton of like rotisserie barbecue chicken. And I was just like, I'm getting the meat sweats.
We were so young. And so were Lindsay and Stevie. Anyway, my only point of this wild digression was that yes, it's cool to eat that stuff sometimes because it is engineered to taste amazing and to hit the spot. But all I could think when I read it was, I was like, I feel bad that he sometimes doesn't eat other food to contrast it with. And that's my only thing with WandaVision.
Say? I don't know.
I'm creating, listen, before I get in trouble for this is all straw men. Everyone raving about WandaVision has other shows they like. I am not defining you. I don't mean to paint you with that brush. But the reason we're struggling to talk about it is, okay, should we talk about this show?
Yeah, let's talk about this episode.
Sure.
Sasha, feel free to turn on a noise machine right now if you haven't already.
We don't want to spoil Sasha. Yeah. But Catherine Hahn's a witch.
Yes.
And all of this, as it turns out, as a season, appears to be, again, very clever, very well architected work to backfill a character who didn't really have an identity in the Marvel Universe to become her original name, Scarlet Witch, but also to introduce magic in a more full-throated way into the Marvel Universe and to make the character not a mutant, not a artificially constructed from Infinity Stones supervillain or an Inhuman or whatever they were going to do for a while. She's a magical person who wields magic and is a witch. That's where all of this was going.
Agatha.
And so...
Is that?
No, Scarlet Witch.
Scarlet Witch. Right.
So, okay. Once again, this is the sound of everyone who's ever had to construct a pitch document for franchise IP in Hollywood going, fuck. That's what's impressive.
Because they did it. They thread the needle. Yeah.
They created something that
she's a new character.
Them.
They got her into a new kind of, they put her in a new car. Yeah.
So that's cool. But beyond that, if we're talking specifics, I mean, first of all, thank you, Lord Feige. You heard my plea. Take me back to Sokovia. You know, I have been banging that drum since Ultron dropped the landmass the first time. Get me back to that fictional Eastern European city.
I wish there was like a whole front line about Sokovia. Like I wish we, like in addition to WandaVision, we could also watch like the 60 minutes deep dive into Sokovia after Ultron and stuff like that. Like that's my shit.
When do we get to the point when we can digitally recreate the god Anthony Bourdain for the Parts Unknown Sokovia episode?
My God.
I mean, like, why not? Why not?
So yes, it's basically a dual origin story. It's the origin story of Agatha. It's the origin story of the Scarlet Witch. There's also this like, I frankly like, and this might be like the limits of my own understanding of this stuff, or maybe I'm just not paying attention closely enough, but am I right in understanding that S.W.O.R.D. actually wants, like their whole goal this whole time was to get a little juice from inside of the Hex to power up this new vision?
I hope so, because otherwise my man...
Josh Damberg, the guy who plays Tyler Hayward, S.W.O.R.D. director.
Tyler Hayward?
Acting S.W.O.R.D. director, Tyler Hayward, yeah.
Acting S.W.O.R.D. director Tyler Hayward.
Which this is what's scary. So the Avengers Endgame takes place in 2023, right?
Okay.
And that's when the snap gets undone and everybody comes back, right? So does the fact that he's acting director of S.W.O.R.D. mean that Trump has won in 2024, has come back and reinstituted his usual habit of making people acting director of things?
That's fascinating. Well, first of all, that suggests that S.W.O.R.D., which was created in the MCU for this TV series, is a cabinet level organization devoted just to weapons from outer space, I believe. It does sound like something Trump created.
Does Tyler Hayward have some problematic tweets and that's why he can't get confirmed by the Senate? Do you think that's the problem?
I think Ken Cuccinelli was nominated to run S.W.O.R.D. couldn't get through the Senate. That's kind of an L for Tyler if he's just been acting since Monica Rambeau's mother
Jared
left.
Kushner was just like, sure, whatever.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
But your theory works for me If
that Sword wants Vision to like something from inside the Hex to reanimate Vision, that they get something from the drone that they sent in.
Otherwise, it is an extremely lax security policy where he's just like, okay, one of the most powerful people in the known universe, please come into my personal office, which for some reason has operating room windows overlooking the place where we chop up your boyfriend, show her the trauma, and then basically plant the seed that she's powerful enough to bring him back to life.
Right.
So it almost has to be that way. I mean, it is either a complete failure of his job or expert mustache twirling supervillain shit.
Right. So I'm a little confused about that. I think that the other side effect of the amount of conversation about WandaVision, of which I am an active participant, and earlier in the season was really enjoying because I felt like you could watch a slightly off-kilter send-up of 1950s or 1960s or 1970s sitcoms, and then go and find out that the newspaper that she was holding had an advertisement for something that has long been referenced in Marvel Comics or might suggest something coming. That has kind of now spun out of control, where I feel like where I was a couple weeks ago when it was like, big shit's about to pop off. We think Reed Richards is coming. She's got this friend that she's texting with. We don't know who that character is. And the multiverse has been invented because there's like this new version of Pietro,
Quicksilver, old version, yeah.
And like it's just like it's all happening. And I was like, I'm in the Cadillac, me and Greenwald, Thelma and Louise, driving full speed towards the edge, and I'm ready to just take off. And then it's like, oh, actually, no, we've got a bunch of toll booths before that. And then it turns out that once you get to the last toll booth, the next road is just Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Like the next road is just Doctor Strange, or the next road is just like, you thought you were going to go and just find everything out and all will be revealed. And in fact, it's just wait till next week and wait till next season and wait till the next movie. And that's my mistake for forgetting how this stuff works. But I think I got caught up a little bit in the idea that this very strange show was going to actually introduce a lot of like pretty highfalutin concepts to the MCU, and I'm just kind of like, what are we doing here?
Well, it can or it can't. You know, I don't want to discredit like the ballsiness, for lack of a better term, of how they opened the season of those 3 episodes and the craft that Matt Shakman and everybody else brought to them. They were really fun, interesting, and surprising in ways that the mainest of mainstream superhero entertainments usually aren't. Like that's very cool. That's good. What I guess has left me feeling both separate and apart from the social media reaction, which I agree we should not be responding to or attempting to double elbow dunk on or whatever. But like, I think the thing that has left me probably the coldest, and if not even a little annoyed, is the realization that there's just not that much depth here by design. And to use I keep going to junk food analogies, which isn't fair because I don't mean to make it pejorative. When I praise Doritos, I am praising them as genius level feats of American ingenuity and engineering.
Right.
Like, I love Doritos. I eat a lot of them, and then I don't feel all that great afterwards.
Sure.
Because they have tricked my brain and my mouth into thinking I want more and I want more. And the Evan Peters thing is a Dorito. It could mean that now all the mutants are coming and it's opening the door to this multiverse where the Fox movies are canon when we want them to be and there can be crossovers. Or it could be, as Catherine Hahn said in this episode, I couldn't use the real corpse of, by the way, poor Aaron Taylor Johnson. That sucks. I couldn't get the real corpse, so I just made up a fake one. So it's kicking the can down the road, but everyone got that rush. And for some people, that rush is super fun and exciting, but it's not going to lead to anything except the next thing it's going to lead to. That's how this stuff works.
And I think that the reason, if you want to take a step back and and we can be a little less catty about it, I'm not like, as this stuff becomes more and more the only thing we're going to get, there's going to be more and more scrutiny on what it's delivering. And if shows like It's a Sin or I May Destroy You or Atlanta or take your pick of any number of like really interesting, shows that are pushing what television can be, start to become more and more obscured by the all-powerful black hole that is franchise intellectual property. And we're just as guilty of that. We've spent 7 weeks talking about WandaVision, but I also think we're spending this much time talking about it because we find the show interesting and what the show means very interesting. But I worry that if you're just like, everything I learned about grief, I learned about from Wanda Maximoff about Age of Ultron. I don't know. I feel like that is a bad lesson to learn. I feel like that is not great personally, but that maybe that's my foginess talking. Maybe that's I'm out of date. I'm a dinosaur.
Well, I think that, when we talked to our close personal friend Ethan Hawke the other week, his answer to the first Moon Knight question, which I think has been, it's a breakout at the videos on social media, but he was, I think, correctly saying that what we talk about and the way we talk about it matters, right? And more challenging art or more ambitious art isn't naturally going to fall into people's laps or fall onto their screens unless you champion and talk about it. And so I think that to pull the full fourth wall WandaVision thing with our podcast, I think that we are concerned about the encroachment of the hex onto what we like to think of as a place where we can champion stuff that's meaningful to us.
Right.
And, we've kept the barriers pretty solid for a while because with a Marvel movie every so often, which I adore, and I especially adore the experience of, that I hope I can do again one day, of going to the ArcLight at Monday morning, 10 a.m., banging out that movie, coming fresh from the theater to talk to you about it. It feels limited, but the walls of that enchantment spell are they're coming closer and closer and closer. And I have to imagine our buddies Sean and Amanda are, feeling a little bit of schadenfreude about this because that's what happened to their turf.
Mm-hmm.
The Marvel and Disney stuff's fun to talk about sometimes, but you also want to talk about the other stuff. But increasingly, there wasn't much middle ground anymore, and it was really only one or the other. And you got to try to find the balance. And we will definitely, I think, do a postmortem on how we feel about this and how we're going to cover them coming forward, because there are going to be just so many of these shows in the next years in the years to come.
Falcon and Winter Soldier starts in the middle of March. There will be like a 1 week break, I think, or 2 week break, and then Falcon and the Winter Soldier starts. What do you want to see in this last episode of WandaVision? What would, not necessarily like what does it have to do plot wise, but is there a feeling you want to leave with that would feel satisfactory?
What I really wanted to do is just really successfully set up Doctor Strange 2 in the Multiverse of Madness.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what you say about most things. That's what we were saying about It's a Sin.
Weirdly, and I know spoilers, I was disappointed in how that set up the sequel. No, I mean, I'm being kind of bitchy about it because that is verbatim what Kevin Feige said the goal of WandaVision was. There are no plans for season 2. It's purpose, but
never.
It is not a self-contained story about one woman's processing of grief, which is the perseverance of love. It is trying to successfully set up Doctor Strange 2. And so this is why you hear the frustration in my voice, because what goals? I don't know.
Right.
I'd like to be entertained. Hopefully it'll be an entertaining end.
I just want to see Wolverine and Deadpool fight.
It's just, but that's exactly, that's baked into the enthusiasm here. There are people who I'm sure we've shared meals with and would love and respect, like who are genuinely, honestly geeked to see a storyline from John Byrne's Avengers West Coast brought to life with an all-white, rebooted, potentially emotion-free Vision, which is a storyline I remember from my childhood. Unless it's in the service of something, I don't have that reaction. But that's just me.
All right. Well, on Thursday, we're going to talk about the final few episodes of It's a Sin. We talked about the first 2 last Thursday. We're going to finish that season on Thursday. We'll have some other stuff for you. Andy, I'm sorry we're haters.
Listen, guys, if you want me to be my full, open-hearted, green and red synthezoid self, not this cold, unfeeling white reboot of myself, listen on Thursday, because It's a Sin. It's just wrecked me. I hope everybody's watching it. 5 episodes. I said 6 when we talked about it last week. I was wrong. I guess I was wishful thinking. It's just wonderful. And I really hope people watch it and are ready to talk about it with us on Thursday.
Yeah, I think it's the best show of the year so far. So I'm really excited to chat about it with you. Until then, thanks to Sasha. Thanks to everybody for listening. Shout out to everybody living in Westview.
Shout out to my Coven of Witches, by the way.
Yeah, shout out to Salem.
You gave it your best.
Yeah.
Wasn't good enough in the end, but we tried.
All right, we're out. Talk to you guys later.